Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you a really awesome build, probably my favorite one, actually going into Void 3.0. If you didn't know, I made one recently with Wave Splitter, but I think I've outdone that one now. So this is got to be my favorite one going into Void 3.0. And it's only going to get better with Witch Queen actually coming out and giving us new mods and whatever, and new weapons, you know, glaives and such. So yeah, this build is going to be utilizing a exotic that's gone under the radar for far too long. That is Ruinous Effigy. This gun is getting buffed by 40%, you know, because it's a trace rifle, against miners, but also the orbs that it drops. I guess these transmutation spheres. They're getting buffed. The guard for the orbs are getting buffed by 66%, which is incredible because the orbs are already very, very good. And that is a hefty buff. And we have a lot of ways of making that even better, and a lot of synergy with the orbs as well. I'll be showing you a bit of synergy for the other characters, and really digging deep with this to make it incredibly OP for Void 3.0. So let's get into this. Alright, so we're going to keep it simple. We're going to start with the Warlock here because I actually have all the components I need to make the build. So yeah, but you could just copy this on other classes with the exotic of choice that you decide to use. There's a couple on Hunter that I recommend using, but there's only one on Titan that I actually recommend using with this. So let's get into this. So Ruinous Effigy. This is the exotic we'll be using. Final blows with the weapon makes little void orbs that you can use to guard or attack with. And guarding with these actually drains their health, heals you incredibly quickly. It'll weaken enemies with the weapon, and it will also blind them too, so they can't actually attack back. Now, this is already busted because you're literally invincible with this thing, but now it's getting buffed by 66%, so before it did like decent damage to enemies, you could kill miners very easily, mages would get chunked, and then eventually die before the orb even disappears, but now with 66% damage, plus the other components we're going to be using in this build, you could kill a whole room of mages before the orb disappears, especially paired with Devour and Warlock and Child of the Old Gods to weaken things. It's going to be incredible. If you don't have this weapon, you can go buy this right now from the exotic kiosk, but I do recommend getting the Catalyst as well. I'm not sure how this drops. I imagine it just drops from strikes or something. But yeah, then you'll need to kill things with the spheres. You could just go into Shattered Throne for that. I think it takes like 600 kills. So that's not a problem. But that's the gun. Now for the other weapons, right now it's kind of just like use whatever you want because obviously Witch Queen isn't out. But if there is a kinetic or a stasis glaive, I highly recommend using that because you get a bit more survivability out of it, and you have better range damage. It's also just great for melee encounters as well. So I recommend using a glaive if there is one up here. Otherwise, I would probably just use maybe a sniper for range damage, or a fusion rifle, because fusion rifles are still going to be very good next season. Now for the heavy slot, this is a bit more diverse. Right now I'm using Threaded Needle because, you know, linears are very powerful right now. They're still going to be very good next season, but with particle deconstruction gone, we may all just switch to rocket launchers. In that case, Royal Entry is a good idea, or maybe even just Hothead. Honestly, the element of your heavy doesn't really matter too much, but if you can get it Void, I would recommend that because we are using a lot of things that benefit Void directly. So yeah, those are the weapons. Pretty straightforward. For the actual subclass, I would recommend using Devour and Child of the Old Gods, and then Oppressive Darkness in your Fragments, and maybe just whatever else you could fit in there that sounds good. I will update this in Witch Queen to actually show a proper look at what my subclass looks like with this build when the time comes. I'm not sure what super I'll use. I'll probably end up using Nova Warp because I'm going to be holding my super most of the time anyway. And Nova Warp is a very good panic option to get out of encounters or just to kill rooms of ads easy if the need is there. So with that out of the way, let's get to the mods. Jumping right into it, we're going to be using Radiant Light for stats. You don't have to use this. You don't have to copy my stats. I would recommend it because the super on Voidwalker right now is not necessary. We're just going to be holding the super for damage, so you don't need Intellect. Intellect is not needed, especially with the Intellect changes. You'll get your super so fast, trust me. With a 10-minute cooldown, I get my super in less than a minute still, so you don't need to care about that. Mantle of Battle Harmony is completely busted for getting supers, so that's fine. I do recommend, however, having maximum recuv for the Rift, because you want Child of the Old Gods up as much as possible. Also, I may do an alternate build with the new Warlock boots to utilize those, and obviously those are Rift based, so you want recuv regardless, also for survivability. Grenades are awesome for Oppressive Darkness, so I would highly recommend having Discipline. Also, grenades are just great in general on Warlock, and it'll make for getting Devour procced easy, because you could just chuck a grenade across the map and kill something random and get your Devour timer up. And then we have melee here, Strength, because Devour is only going to be procced by your Void abilities that aren't grenade, I think. You can't consume the grenade anymore. At least maybe unless you're using Chaos Accelerant, I'm not sure, but we're not going to be using Chaos Accelerant on here, so I'm not sure how Devour is going to actually work in terms of grenades. So you want the Strength as a backup, and also because the new melee is ranged, it'll be nice to have that up a lot. So yeah, nice 29-second cooldown for your melee, easy mode. Now, actually getting into the rest of the mods, since I did just mention the stat one, we have Elemental Armaments and Font of Might. Now, Font of Might will only work for the Void weapons, which is why I recommend using Void. But this is a 25% damage increase to everything, and it stacks with everything, so it doesn't matter how you use this, as long as you proc it, you have 25% damage for all of your Void weapons, if you are on Void. Which is perfect, because our main weapons that we care about are Void. Now, the neat thing with Ruinous Effigy and Font of Might, and even Battle Harmony as well, is that both the weapon and the orb count as weapons, right? They count as actual weapon kills, meaning the orb can benefit from Font of Might and Mantle of Battle Harmony to the full extent. So you'll get a kill with the orb, and it will activate absorption cells, or you get a kill with the orb with Elemental Armaments equipped, and it'll make a well, and then you pick up the well, and it'll buff the orb by 25% because you have Font of Might. This also applies to the Slam, this also applies to the Guard, so the Guard's getting buffed by 66%, for example, and then you're adding another 25% on top of that, and then if you activate Battle Harmony, you're adding another 20% on top of the 25%, which means you're over 100% damage increase to what it originally was, which is right now. So that's already incredible. You're just going to be melting everything, and you're going to be completely unkillable with Devour and the insane DR that the Guard gives you. It's nuts. It really is nuts. Now, we're also pairing this with Well of Tenacity. I can't actually put Protective Light in this build right now, because I want triple 100s for the melee. All I need is another piece of gear that has an extra 10 strength. I can do that. It is possible, because you can see I have way too much of this going on. So I can actually get an extra 10 strength and have Protective Light in here without losing my triple 100s. Also, with the Fragments giving us stat increases, I'll probably be able to do it anyway without needing the extra 10 strength. So regardless, I will be able to get Protective Light in here. So I recommend having Protective Light over Well of Tenacity. But if you don't have Protective Light, or you can't get Protective Light in the build, then use Well of Tenacity, since it does benefit from Void Wells, and we're making so many Void Wells that we're constantly going to have the resistance anyway. And then lastly, I just have Particle Deconstruction, because I haven't really figured out what I want to do with this yet, since this won't be here next season. I did think about using Font of Wisdom, just for fast supers if I actually wanted to use the super. But I also thought about maybe throwing in another way of getting wells. I'm not really sure. Like, there's probably going to be new mods for that anyway, so I'll just use those. But the rest of the mods, like the scavs and whatever, don't really mean anything. If you're scared about double special, don't be. It's the most broken thing in the game. You'll never run out of ammo, trust me, especially with a trace rifle on, since they're basically glorified primaries at this point. So you don't really need to worry about that. But yeah, that's a build. That's a setup. Let's get into how this thing's going to work practically. Okay, so just quickly showing you how this thing operates before I show you a bit of synergy on the other characters and end off this video. On the Warlock, you'll obviously pop Devour, maybe use Child of the Old Gods. You make an orb, you pick this up, and everything will be blinded, stunned, nothing can touch you. You can see the DR is incredible. I mean, nothing can even do anything anymore. This will be buffed by 66% next season, which is great. You can see here, it is activating Energy Siphon. It did spawn a well, like I mentioned it would, and now the weapon is buffed, and both the weapon and the orb is buffed. As you can see here, now it does more damage. Went from 777 to 888. Oh, it's 711 actually. There you go. That's basically the gist of it, you know. You kill enemies with the orb or the gun. You activate Devour with both of those sources as well. You'll pick up wells and you'll get more damage. And you'll also get DR from that because of Well of Tenacity. Eventually, when I have my super, the orb and the gun will benefit from that as well and get more damage. And it just makes for ad clearing and just messing around with void stuff very easy and very powerful. And you still have a very potent heavy to pair with it, and you have a great special to, you know, do whatever you want with as well. So that's what it's going to be like on Warlock. Now I'm just going to show you a little bit of synergy on the other characters real quick, and then end this one off. Alright, so if we go on to Night Stalker here, and you have either Omnioculus or Graviton Forfeit, because those are the two exotics I recommend for Invis. I don't have a reason to put it on right now, since I can just quickly show this without them. But I do recommend you use them. Basically, really cool synergy with this weapon and Invis is that you can actually clear entire rooms of enemies without even needing to worry about breaking your Invis. So I can go Invis, pick up an orb, and kill enemies without breaking the actual Invis itself. You can blind enemies, kill them, whatever. As long as you're guarding, the Invis will never break. So that's the cool synergy with Hunter, if you plan to use this on a Hunter. With the same build I mentioned. The recommended exotics, again, are Omnioculus and Graviton Forfeit, as they benefit from Invis the most. But generally, anything works. Yeah, that's basically it for Hunter. Alright, so the neat thing about Titan is that with Icefall Mantle, Ruinous just becomes even more broken than the other two classes. Obviously, Devour is extremely powerful, and then being able to go Invis and not break the Invis is also very powerful. But actually having Icefall Mantle on this makes you even more unkillable than you were before. So we have here, I can blind enemies and kill them as much as I want, and look how much damage they do to me. Absolutely nothing. I mean, look at that dreg, he's tickling me. This guy, he just killed himself, you know? It's pretty dumb. You also get a little bit of movement out of this. I don't recommend trying a movement like this, but you can move a little bit further than you would normally. And you can just destroy things with this. And since obviously you're healing constantly, and you are taking very little damage, your actual shield timer will just keep resetting, because, you know, you can take stupid amounts of damage and there won't be an issue with that. So, yeah, that's the synergy with the classes. There might be more synergy on Titan, honestly, but I haven't really, like, looked into it too much, so I'm not exactly sure how things run on here with Ruinous. But, yeah, that's it for the video. Hopefully you enjoyed the build, and let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Adios.